What is up, guys? Merda Juventus just ended in favor of Juventus 2-1. Called it before the game. Gonna put my tweet up there. My initial reactions? But at the end of the day, it was a win against Merda, and that's all that matters. So we lined up in a 4-4-2 on paper. Bernardeschi actually played on the left. He did not play on the right. McKennie moved centrally. Quadrado pushed up, and the backline was composed of Alexandro De Ligt and Demiral as the back three. Rabiot, Betancourt were like holding mids, and McKennie was pushing forward with Kulusevski right behind Ronaldo. In the first half, Juventus had 3 shots total, 2 on target with 58% possession. Overall, I thought they controlled the game well with possession, but they needed to make more of those chances. They didn't really do much going forward. Quadrado drew a penalty out of nowhere after a horrible Bernardeschi cross, and then Ronaldo converted it, and not too far after, Ronaldo out of nowhere took the ball from Bastoni and scored the goal to make it 2-1 for Juventus. Juventus really didn't have the greatest start. Buffon really should have saved that shot by Lautaro. Overall though, Buffon made some great saves. As the game progressed and went into the second half, we started seeing much more balance and counter as opposed to the first half where we saw Inter controlling the game right after the goal. Once Juventus scored the 2 goals, they took control, but once the second half started, Inter again gained control. Inter started to lose their heads a bit, and then it became a wide open game going from one side of the field to the other with Juventus putting pressure on them, but Juventus were sitting back, in my opinion, way too much. I did not like to see it, especially when Inter was having so much of the possession. At the end, it ended up being 50-50 for both teams, but Inter came away with more shots on target. It was a very balanced affair, and Juventus won, so that's all that really matters. So in regards to individual players and individual performances, I would say Buffon did okay. He did pretty good. He made some good saves, but there were some times that I just don't know what he was doing. The first goal he should have saved. Then he made a weird pass. I forgot who it was. I think it was Demiral. A horrible pass. Or attempted pass rather, because it never made it to him, and then it left the defense exposed. Alexandro as center back, I didn't like it. Alexandro, I thought had a horrible game. He had, I thought, a horrible game. Horrible. There were too many times that he was tracking back, and it seemed like he was jogging. It didn't seem like it almost seemed like he couldn't run. He was getting exposed. He kept losing possession and then not tracking back or attempting to track back, and it was just jogging. I didn't like it. Demiral grew into the game. After the yellow card that he got, we started to see a more dominant performance and more a Chiellini-like performance. Really celebrating every tackle that he made, every interception he made, and he also made a goal-line clearance, thankfully, after that heavy touch by Betancourt. Thankfully, otherwise it would have been a 2-2 game with Sanchez having the game of his life, looking like his prime self at Barcelona. I haven't seen Sanchez play like this in years. I don't know what the hell he was doing this game. Surprisingly, I thought De Ligt was kind of shaky at the back. He made that beautiful challenge on Barella that made him go flying like a ballerina. I don't know what Barella's doing. He's like flying on everything challenge. I still want to see De Ligt play in his normal position on the right hand side of the back between the 2 center backs, as opposed to constantly playing on the left and making the adjustment for Demiral, for Bonucci. He should be playing in his position and he should be playing comfortably. Quadrado on the right, always he's been performing well as of late. He keeps performing. He keeps doing what he knows how to do. Defensively, it was great. Kept tracking back, helping out the defense, because for the first 20 minutes of the game, right up until Demiral got the yellow card, backline was very shaky, especially on Lautaro's goal. As for Juventus's midfield, Betancourt, in my opinion, had a good game. At first, he had his head down and was just making these blind passes, not really doing much. But as he grew into the game, he was becoming more dominant, asserting his physicality, something that I think is that he should do more. I feel like he's an extremely strong player on the ball, and he showed it against Vidal at that one time where he completely dispossessed Vidal. I know Vidal is aging and he's getting old, but Betancourt has the capability to impose himself. Him and Rabiot are 2 really strong players on the ball. Rabiot, I thought, had a good game. He didn't really do much, but he kept it simple, and he almost acted as the kind of like a regista, more like a defensive mid. Him and Betancourt seemed to be the 2 players in midfield, with McKennie making those runs forward and playing more more like a central attacking midfielder. McKennie, in my opinion, didn't have the greatest of games. He often found himself making the runs in the center and was on the end of a few crosses, but he never reached them. McKennie's highlight of the game was him not going off of the field the right side and pissing off the Inter player. Bernardeschi on the left-hand side did surprisingly well. Going forward, he didn't really offer much. His crosses were terrible, but he kept it simple again, and I feel like, you know, that's a trending theme in this team, keeping it simple. If he didn't cross the ball, Cuadrado would have never fell for the penalty. The thing that I'm like very curious about is how Bernardeschi from Fiorentina is no longer that player. He no longer looks a threat. Surprisingly, he had a shot on target, and that kind of blew me away. If it weren't for, I think it was a deflection, that would have went in, and that would have been a goal that he hasn't scored in a while. Bernardeschi for the Azzurri is a completely different player, and I really don't understand it. I don't know if he just the weight of wearing the Juventus jersey is too much. It's definitely a mentality thing, and I feel like he could be so much better as a player, but it's just not happening. It's just not there. Kulusevski didn't really do much this game. Thought it was a poor game. He often disappears in these games. I don't know why, but, you know, at the end of the day, he's still young. You gotta cut him some slack. He's been doing well up until this point, but at the big stage on these certain games, he just completely disappears. Ronaldo, besides his 2 goals, he didn't really do anything. He kept trying to do tricks and all this, and it just wasn't happening. He came off and he was pissed at Pirlo and he said something. And honestly, I don't see why he was mad. Because he didn't get a hat trick, you know. Thankfully, Ronaldo scored the penalty, and Ronaldo then scored an open net. Overall, he didn't really have a good game, but he scored. So as far as the subs, I thought Danilo and Arthur were the 2 subs that made the most of an impact. Danilo, as soon as he came in, the defense became a lot more composed. In my opinion, Alexandro is no longer the player he was once we got him. Danilo this season has been a completely different player, and once you have him in there, you're just a lot more secure. And he played at right back, and then Cuadrado shifted up to a right winger, and we saw a lot more from the team once Danilo came in. Also, with the addition of Arthur replacing Betancourt, we saw Arthur dictating play much more. While I want to see Arthur a lot more forward, when he came into the game, he started making more passes, more forward passes, and relieving us of sitting back as much, and we put a lot more pressure on Inter, and they started to fall apart. They started racking up a lot of yellow. I think it's like 3 or 4 of their players are going to miss the second leg already. Both Morata and Chiesa really didn't do much. Chiesa drew a couple fouls, but at the end of the day, all that matters is Juventus beat Inter. Juventus beat Inter, so we're on to the next game. It's a 2-legged affair, so we still have another game to play, but 2 away goals is major. Pirlo seemed to get this one kind of right, even though there wasn't many chances created. Came away with the win, and on to the next game. If you want to see more from me going forward, like the video and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you thought of the game.